No one tells you this, but your discipline didn't vanish. It was drained, quietly, while you were scrolling, while you were planning, while you kept telling yourself tomorrow would be different. You didn't mean to fall behind. You just got good at waiting. Waiting for clarity, for momentum, for motivation to return. But it didn't. Because that version of you, the one who acts even when it's hard, doesn't wait. He obeys. The delays felt harmless, but they became your identity. Goals with no grit, dreams with no drive. Not because you're weak, but because your system wasn't built to handle friction. You flinched from the very structure that would have saved you. And here's the truth. If you don't override your mind, it will override your life. That inner voice that whispers, just today, just one more scroll, seems harmless, but it's killing your edge, stealing your momentum, replacing discipline with doubt. One small compromise at a time, until you wake up and no longer recognize the man in the mirror. This video doesn't offer hype. It offers a reset. In the next few minutes, you'll learn why your drive keeps vanishing and how it's not your fault. You'll see exactly how to override hesitation and force yourself into motion on command. If you've failed before, good. That means you're ready for what most men never learn. Before we go deeper, leave this in the comments. What's the one thing you've promised yourself again and again, but still haven't done? I read everyone. Because this isn't just content. This is for men who are done pretending, who are done waiting, who are ready to rebuild. Not louder, but stronger. Hack your mind, or lose yourself to it. How you've been hijacked. You didn't start lazy. You weren't born distracted. There was a time when you could focus for hours, play without guilt, dream without hesitation. But slowly, without permission, your mind got hijacked. Not with sirens, not with alarms, but with slow, silent rewiring. You started chasing hits instead of goals. Dopamine over direction. Clicks instead of clarity. Every notification, every scroll, every shortcut, every escape. Reprogramming your attention span, fragmenting your thoughts, dulling your edge. The enemy wasn't outside. It was in your pocket, on your desk, in your habits. You began trading deep work for shallow wins. Urgency replaced purpose. Stimulation replaced strategy. And now you can't sit still. You can't focus for more than 10 minutes without reaching for something. Your phone, your inbox, a snack, a distraction that looks like rest but isn't. This wasn't an accident. It was engineered by platforms that profit off your delay, by trends that normalize mental chaos, by systems that prefer you obedient, distracted, and addicted to everything that doesn't move you forward. And here's the truth no one wants to say. This isn't just a productivity issue. It's an identity theft. Because when your mind is constantly pulled outward, you forget how to return inward. You stop trusting your own thoughts. You lose the rhythm of your instincts. You can't hear your purpose over the noise. And the worst part? You blame yourself. You think you're weak. You think you lack discipline. But the real issue isn't weakness. It's mental warfare. And if you don't fight back intentionally, you don't just lose time, you lose yourself. Marcus Aurelius warned, you must reclaim your attention as if it were the only thing that truly belongs to you. And in today's world, that warning isn't ancient. It's urgent. Because your attention is your life. Where it goes, your energy follows. And where your energy flows, your future is built. If you don't take it back, someone else will continue writing your script. So what does this hijacking look like in daily life? It's the hesitation before you start, the loop of overthinking, the 5-minute check that becomes 2 wasted hours. It's decision fatigue before breakfast. It's the fatigue that doesn't come from work, but from too many tabs open, both on your screen and in your head. But here's the power play most men never realize. The same way your mind was hijacked, it can be reclaimed. The brain isn't broken, it's conditioned. And what's been conditioned can be rewired. That's not motivation talk. That's neuroscience. You don't need to escape the modern world. You need to fortify your mind inside of it, with systems, with rituals, with discipline that cuts through the noise like a blade. Rebuilding starts with one rule. What gets your attention gets to shape you. That means it's not about consuming less. It's about choosing better, replacing scrolling with reflection, swapping dopamine loops for delayed gratification, making stillness a daily ritual, protecting your mornings like sacred ground, guarding your inputs like your life depends on it, because it does. Not just your work, not just your focus, but your sense of self. You can't afford to keep leaking energy to things that don't matter. This is the new battleground. Not the to-do list, not the gym, but the war for your mind. And if you don't declare it sacred, the world will continue treating it like junk space. So take inventory, audit your attention, and ask yourself this: what have I unconsciously allowed to rewire me? What habits have turned my clarity into confusion? And what would it take to reverse it? Not with shame, but with structure, because once you realize your attention has been stolen, you stop waiting for motivation. You stop looking for hacks. You start fortifying the fortress, one brick at a time, not with perfection, but with presence. That's how you win it back. Be honest. What daily habit is hijacking your clarity the most right now? Let us know in the comments. You're not alone. Burn the backup plan. You say you want it. You say you're ready. But deep down, you're still leaving exits open. Just in case. Just in case it gets hard. Just in case you fail. Just in case it doesn't work out the way you hoped. That's the problem. The backup plan. The escape hatch. The little mental side door labeled "maybe later." And as long as it's there, discipline will always feel optional. You'll always have one foot in and one foot out. No man builds a legacy with a safety net under every decision, because the mind only goes all in when it has no other choice. When the bridge behind you is burnt, when the only direction left is forward, that's when your full force kicks in. That's when you stop dabbling and start devoting. That's when your identity stops wobbling between versions of you and starts sharpening into someone who actually follows through. Most people don't fail because they're incapable. They fail because they keep negotiating with fear, with fatigue, with comfort, with mediocrity. They say they're committed, but they're really just interested. They want growth, but only if it's convenient. They want success, but still keep the option to retreat. But here's what no one tells you. Discipline doesn't thrive where there's still debate. It thrives where there's a decision, one that's irreversible, one that removes the maybe and replaces it with must. Then, Epictetus said it best. First, say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. That's not a theory. That's an identity shift. And that identity, your next version, doesn't keep escape routes. He doesn't need them. He replaces them with systems, with standards, with sacred boundaries that make quitting harder than staying in the fight. Think about it. Have you ever truly committed to something with zero fallback? Not half committed, not kinda interested, but the kind of commitment where your reputation is on the line, where your time, money, sleep, relationships are all in. That kind of pressure terrifies most people. But here's the twist. That pressure is the gift. Because it eliminates choice fatigue. It removes the daily debate of should I and replaces it with how will I. It turns discipline from a struggle into your default setting. You want to get shredded. Cancel the comfort food subscriptions. Tell your closest friends. Book the event that forces you to show up. You want to build a business? Cut off the mental fantasy of going back to your old job. Throw away the "it's okay if this fails" narrative. Because until your actions prove your commitment, you're just hoping, and hope isn't a strategy. Look at anyone who's done something truly exceptional. They didn't keep back doors open. They didn't flirt with comfort. They made staying the same too painful. They created pressure on purpose, not to crush them, but to forge them. And that's the mindset you need to rebuild. Pressure not as punishment, but as clarity. Structure not as restriction, but as liberation. So take inventory. Where are you still hedging your bets? Where are you telling yourself, if it doesn't work, I'll just stop? Kill the sentence. Burn the bridge. Not recklessly, but intentionally. Because when you do, something radical happens. You wake up differently. You move differently. You speak with conviction because you're no longer asking for permission. You've committed without rescue. You've hacked your own comfort loop. What's the backup plan? You know you need to burn, but haven't? Share it. Declare it. And kill the option that's been killing your momentum. This is the turning point. Not when you read more books, not when you get motivated again, but when you choose discomfort with no escape, when you plant both feet in the arena and say, this is who I am now, and from that place, discipline isn't forced. It's inevitable. Rewrite your mind, reclaim your power. There's a silent war happening inside your mind right now. Not between good and evil, not even between right and wrong, but between two versions of you, one built by default, the other waiting to be built by design. And until you recognize which voice you're listening to, you'll keep mistaking the noise for your identity. Because here's the truth. The mind you're operating with today isn't entirely yours. It's a patchwork, a collection of inputs, patterns, fears, routines you didn't even choose. You inherited them from parents, from school, from old jobs, from failures, from moments where you flinched and didn't even know it. And these patterns, they run deep. They show up in your hesitation, in your avoidance, in your mental loops that say, not yet, maybe tomorrow, or I don't feel like it. That's not you. That's just the code you've been running. And if you want discipline, not the kind that lasts a week, but the kind that rewires who you are, you can't just push harder. You have to reprogram. This is the part no one glamorizes. The phase where you don't feel powerful, where the old voice screams louder, where you sit in the silence and realize, I've been living on autopilot for years. That's what hit me first. The amount of my life I had reacted to, not chosen. The habits I defended just because they were familiar. The goals I chased that weren't even mine. That moment hurt. But it was necessary, because before you can reprogram anything, you have to see the old script clearly. And not just see it, challenge it. Seneca once said, most powerful is he who has himself in his own power. That begins here, in the lab of discomfort, In the rewiring phase, where you don't just break habits, you rebuild identity. This isn't about becoming someone else. It's about stripping away who you never were in the first place. Let me be real with you. Your brain doesn't want change. It wants certainty, predictability, dopamine, without effort. That's why when you try to build structure, you feel resistance. That's why when you try to sit still, your hand reaches for your phone like it has a mind of its own. That's programming. But just like any operating system, it can be rewritten. You start small, not with 10 new goals, not with a total life overhaul. With one interruption, one conscious override, you catch yourself reaching for the scroll. You stop. You notice yourself bargaining with the alarm. You override. You feel the wave of, "I'll do it later." You act anyway. These are the micro repetitions that rewire the macro. These are the small hinges that swing big doors. But it's not just about saying no to the old. It's about building something new to take its place. A new morning ritual, a new focus rhythm, a new way of talking to yourself when no one's listening. The old voice says, "You're inconsistent." The new voice answers, "Not anymore." The old voice says, "You'll never stick to it." The new one replies, "Watch me." That shift doesn't happen overnight. But every time you override the script, every time you delay the comfort hit and choose structure instead, your brain rewires, and over time, you stop faking discipline. You become it. Don't underestimate this phase. It's not sexy. There's no applause. It's quiet, repetitive, uncertain. But it's where the real transformation happens. It's where the hack lives. Not in shortcuts, but in strategy. You train your nervous system to tolerate discomfort. You teach your mind to obey vision, not emotion. You reclaim authority over the most important territory in your life, your attention. And yes, you'll fail. You'll slip. You'll catch yourself mid-pattern. But every slip is an opportunity to observe, not shame, because awareness is the lever. Without it, you're a puppet. With it, you're a programmer. And with every conscious override, your identity updates. This is the reprogramming phase. And if you're in it, if you're resisting old patterns, building new ones, walking away from cheap pleasure and toward deep presence, then you're already ahead of 99% of people, not because you're perfect, but because you're present. And in a world addicted to distraction, presence is power. So don't rush this part. Don't skip it. Honor it. This is the real inner work. This is where self-respect is coded into your actions. This is where you stop reacting and start engineering the man you were supposed to become. Brick by brick, override by override, day by day. You're not just changing habits, you're rewriting your operating system. 5. Discipline rituals that force action. You don't need another tip. You don't need a new planner. What you need, what every man craving transformation truly needs, is a set of rituals that override weakness, rituals that don't wait for willpower, that don't require motivation, that force movement through structure. These are not habits. Habits bend when you're tired. Rituals command, even when you're not listening. You don't rise to the level of your feelings. You fall to the level of your ritual. So if you're serious about rewiring your life, stop asking what you feel like doing and start programming what you do, no matter what. The following 5 rituals aren't fancy. They're not complicated, but they work because they remove choice. They simplify the mental battlefield. They force you to act. Ritual 1. The rule of one. Every morning, before you check your phone, before you scroll, before you negotiate with the day, write down one non-negotiable task, not 10. One action that moves your mission forward. One task that, if done consistently, would make you dangerous. Then do it. First, before you consume anything, before the chaos can touch your clarity. Why only one? Because discipline starts by shrinking the battlefield. Because when you simplify, you can strike. You don't need 20 things. You need one win. And when that win is completed, you create momentum. You remind yourself who's in control. One action, done early. Donifest. Done before the world has a chance to distract you. Ritual 2, the focus gate. You can't build anything meaningful in a fractured state. Deep work requires depth, and depth requires defense. That's why every morning you must pass through what I call the focus gate. Set a timer, 60 minutes. No notifications, no browser tabs, no interruptions, pure, undiluted attention. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. It matters that it's protected. What you build in that hour is more valuable than 8 hours of shallow movement. You want to separate yourself. Learn to go deep when everyone else stays scattered. Your brain will resist. You'll itch to check, to shift, to escape. That's the gate. And when you pass through it, you sharpen the very muscle most men never train. Mental stamina. Pass through it daily, and discipline will start to feel inevitable. Ritual 3. Visual commitment. The human brain believes what it sees. So stop hiding your goals in your mind and start externalizing them. Every night before bed, write tomorrow's actions on a physical board. Your kitchen wall, your desk, your mirror. Somewhere you see, somewhere public. Somewhere where the version of you that breaks promises will have to face the version of you who wrote them down. This is not about pressure. It's about programming. When you see your words staring back at you, unfulfilled, it triggers something primal. Guilt? Maybe. But more importantly, alignment. Because the more times you complete what you've written, the more congruent you become. And the more congruent you are, the less friction you face. Why? Because you're no longer pretending, you're becoming. Ritual per Dopamine Lockbox. Your greatest threat isn't failure, it's distraction. It's the constant flood of cheap dopamine that rewards you without progress. Every time you scroll, binge, indulge, you weaken the loop between pain and growth. That's why you need a ritual that forces withdrawal. Pick 1 hour of your day, every day, and designate it as dopamine-free. No phone, no music, no stimulation. Just you, your thoughts, your discomfort. This isn't about boredom. It's about rebooting the reward system. About teaching your brain that not every void must be filled. That silence is not punishment. It's power. Men who master stillness master themselves. This ritual rewires the part of you that needs noise to feel alive. Because the man who can sit in silence without panicking is the man who can act without needing approval. Ritual 5. Evening War Room. Most people start the day in chaos because they end the day in chaos. Your final hour determines your next morning. That's why you need an evening war room. Every night. No exceptions. You sit down, review your day, extract one lesson, and plan tomorrow with intention. What did I avoid today? What did I conquer? What will I face tomorrow? This isn't about journaling emotions. This is about strategy, about treating your life like a battlefield, not a vacation. When you enter sleep with clarity, you wake up with command. And men who begin their mornings with a plan don't get hijacked by emotion. They execute, not react, because they already decided the night before what matters. You might think this is overkill, that you can get by without structure. But let me ask you this. Where has trying your best gotten you so far? Where has "I'll get to it when I can" led you? These rituals are not for men who want to feel good. They're for men who want to become dangerous, not in the loud, flashy, performative way, but in the quiet, unshakable, I keep my word, when no one's looking kind of way. Because that's what real discipline is. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's repetition, it's reliability. It's choosing the hard thing so often that your brain forgets how to flinch. Musonius Rufus said, "Philosophy calls for simple living, not for doing penance." These rituals are simple, but they're not soft. They're structure with teeth. They force your body to move, even when your mind hesitates. They remove the option to negotiate. They destroy the illusion of, "I'll do it later." And they train you, day after day, to act without needing to feel ready. So start with one, just one, then build. Stack them until your day becomes a rhythm of obedience to your higher self. Because once these rituals take hold, you'll look back at the man you used to be, the one who waited, who delayed, who needed perfect conditions, and you won't even recognize him, because that version of you will have been burned, replaced, upgraded, not by luck, not by hype, but by repetition, and that's the kind of man no one can stop. Why collapse is part of discipline. You're going to break. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually your system will wobble, your momentum will crack, the fire will dim, and you'll feel it. Quietly, then suddenly, that moment when the routine you swore by starts to feel heavy, when the clarity fades, when the resistance comes back louder, and for a second, you'll wonder if anything changed at all. That's the collapse, and it's part of the process. No man builds a new identity without facing the ghost of the old one. The part of you that's still waiting for an excuse to return, and when the collapse comes, it won't ask for permission. It'll show up in the form of self-doubt, fatigue, old cravings, old habits knocking at the door. And the mistake most men make is thinking it's failure. It's not. It's the cost of rewiring. The system pushes back before it upgrades. The nervous system resists the unfamiliar. The body grieves the comfort it used to drown in. And when you understand that, you stop seeing the collapse as weakness and start treating it as a checkpoint. Marcus Aurelius said, "If you stumble, make it part of the dance." That's what this moment is. Not an ending. A fold in the rhythm. A test to see if you'll curse the fall or recommit through it. Because the real war isn't against the collapse. It's against your reaction to it. Do you disappear? Do you abandon your rituals? Do you let one off day become a lost week? Or do you pause, breathe, forgive, and return stronger? Without theatrics, discipline isn't built by never falling. It's built by rising faster, by deciding, even mid-collapse, that this is still who I am. No negotiation, no shame, just movement. So when the collapse comes, and it will, don't flinch, don't spiral, smile, because it means you're deep in the work. It means you're reprogramming something real. And real change never happens without resistance. Discipline without witness. There is a kind of discipline that doesn't trend, it doesn't get applause, doesn't earn a post, and doesn't leave a digital footprint. It's the kind you carry in silence. The kind no one sees, but you feel it. And when you walk with it long enough, the world starts to feel it too. This is where the real ones are separated from the performers. Anyone can show up when someone's watching. Anyone can be consistent when there's validation waiting at the end of the task. But what about the days no one checks in, no one asks, no one claps? The days when your discipline echoes only in your own head, that's when it becomes sacred. Most people don't quit because it's hard. They quit because no one notices, because we were trained to crave recognition more than results. But the Stoic doesn't move for recognition. He moves because he said he would. He moves because his word to himself is law. That's discipline without witness. And it's where transformation quietly begins. Seneca said, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity, for he is not permitted to prove himself. In the same way, no discipline is more pure than the kind performed in solitude. When you do the workout, eat clean, stay focused, say no to distraction, not for praise, not for posts, but for alignment." That's power. Because when you keep promises no one else can verify, something in you shifts. You stop needing permission. You stop looking for proof. You stop outsourcing your momentum to public approval. You just become the kind of man who acts. Period. And ironically, when you live this way long enough, quiet, deliberate, unfazed, the world starts to take notice. Not through noise, but through presence. People start to feel your rhythm. They don't know what changed, but they sense it. Because discipline, when lived consistently in private, radiates in public without effort. So the question is simple. Who are you when no one is watching? Because that version, the one behind the curtain, when the camera's off, when no one is checking, is the one building your future. Let him lead. The Brotherhood of Rebuilt Men. You've made it this far, not because it was easy, but because something in you refuses to stay the same. That voice, the one that used to whisper, "Someday," has now been replaced by something sharper, louder, more real. And if that shift is happening inside you, you're not alone. There's a new kind of man emerging. A man who doesn't wait for perfect conditions, who doesn't chase motivation, who doesn't need an audience to keep his word. He moves in silence. He builds in disciplina, and he's not doing it for praise. He's doing it because the alternative is a life unlived. This channel isn't just content, it's a call. A space for men who are done negotiating with their potential, men who've outgrown excuses, cheap dopamine, and performative growth, men who rebuild from structure, not emotion. And if you found value in this, subscribe not just for yourself, but for the man you used to be. The one who was lost in distraction, who needed someone, anyone, to show him it was possible to break the cycle. By doing that, you're not only upgrading your own life, you're making this philosophy accessible to other men who are still stuck. Men who are tired of being ignored, tired of the friend zone, tired of waking up feeling behind in their own story. This is more than a video. It's a movement of quiet warriors, one rep at a time, one override at a time. And it begins with you. Welcome to the Brotherhood.